right, so let's start with the first one. You open a savings account with $30. You deposit an additional $20 every week. Right, solve the equation to find how many weeks it will take you to save $150. What did I tell you to always start with, Lily? The total, and the total is 150. So there's where we want to start. So if you know nothing else, you know that it should equal 150. Okay, remember, this side over here has to add up to 150, or has to give us 150. So how are we going to get 150 on that left-hand side? Jenna. Okay, so does the x go with the 20 or the 30? And tell me why.
20 is the amount of money you deposit
Every week. Good. So, and if you want to use W, if that makes more sense to you, plus, she said, your $30 that you start with. And that would be your equation. Okay? So then from there, I'm going to go ahead and solve that. So my first step then would be to subtract 30, because this is what I started with. So I would have $20 a week equals 120. And then if I want to save $20 per week, it should make sense that I would take 120 and divide it by 20 to see how many weeks I would be saving. So divide by 20, divide by 20. And it goes in what? 6 times. So my solution would be 6, and it's every week, so 6 weeks. Questions on that one? Does that make sense? Okay. All right, then it said write the expression in expanded form. This is also called distributive property. How do I do the first one? I tried to give you a pretty easy one to start. Preston. Yeah, you take 3 times y, which would be 3y. Keep your symbol, so minus, and 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, we're basically going to combine solving equations with also using distributive property today. All right, let's look at the next one. What have I taught you to do with all subtraction signs? Same, change, right? So we're going to go ahead and do same, change, so that now I understand that that is a -7. Okay, so -2 times p would be -2p plus -2 times a -7 would be a +14. And that's why I use the same change with you guys, because my pre-algebra kids were really struggling with why a negative and a -7 was going to give them that positive. Because I don't force them to do it as much. But hopefully that makes sense. Does that make sense why it's positive? Can we change it? Okay. All right. Now, on the first one, I could have changed it, and I would have gotten the same answer. So let me show you if I would have changed this one. So 3 times y is still 3y. 3 times -4 is a -12. I could have done this. Remember, those two are the exact same thing. So, but you're probably going to see it in digits like that. You just have to know it both ways. Okay. If you would do that on a test and it would count it wrong, that's when you could bring it to me and I would count it right. Because it's the same. All right, next one. I'm going to take -5 times 3. So that would be -15k. Plus -5 times 2 would be -10. And you could write it like that, or it's fine if you would say -15k minus 10. Those would be the same. Questions on any of that? Because I'm going to put all of that together today. Good? All right, let's go ahead and look at our learning goal for today. Okay, learning goal for today, the student will understand how to solve equations using the distributive property. So again, I'm just going to put everything we just did in the warm-up together. All right, so look at this slide. Use the distributive property to solve the equation. All right, so remember I told you that we've been working on the foundation of equation solving. So as long as we have a solid foundation, this should not feel hard. We're still going to draw our line through the equal sign. And then now we're going to do exactly what we did in the warm-up. We're going to go ahead and distribute that -2. So I'm going to take -2 times x is -2x. Keep my plus sign and do -2 times 5, which is -10. And then I'm going to make that equal 4. now this looks exactly like what we've been working on with two-step equations. So how would I go about solving this equation? Cassie? I would add 10 because that's a negative 10 and I want to get rid of it. So if I add 10 here, that makes this go to 0. Add 10 here. All right, so this right here is going to drop down and I have negative 2x equals 10 plus 4 is 14. And what is my next step like we did yesterday? Lily? Divide by negative 2. Very good. Make sure you divide by a negative 2. Why are we dividing by a negative? It is. I totally agree. Mathematically, why do I have to divide by a negative 2? Cassie? Very good. 2 negatives make it positive. We want that to be a positive 1x. All right, so we divide this side then by negative 2, and we get x equals negative 7. Okay, questions on that before I keep going? Is that making sense? See, it's really not any harder. It's just adding another step, but it's everything we've already done. All right, let's try another one. Remember, we are focusing on proper steps. That's the number one thing that we're really, really focusing on. Okay, so we're going to start by drawing our line. Bless you. All right, and what are we going to do now? Sam? Good. 8 times x. That's 8x. Keep the subtraction, and then 8 times 4. And that's going to equal 16. If you want to change that to plus a negative, that is completely fine because this is going to be the exact same thing. So either way, this one is fine. Okay, what do I do next? Aubrey. Good. Add 32 to both sides. All right, so my 8x drops down. I'm going to add 16 and 32, which is 48. And then we should be pretty good at this, right? What's the next step to Mario? You should know. You know. Look at it. What's my last step? Chandler. Divide by 8. So my 8's cancel. And 48 divided by 8 is 6. Okay? Alright, let's look at... Oh, Micaiah. How'd you get 48? 16 plus 32. Alright, let's look at some word problems with this, because this is where it gets tricky. Alright, what I like about digits is sometimes they give you that multiple choice, and especially when you're first learning how to write equations, I think it's really helpful to see choices to help you kind of pick that out. Last season, a sports fan spent $5,248 to see her favorite team play 41 games. First of all, I was like, holy cow, 41 games is a ton. Think if you went to 41 games. What sport would this have to be? 41 football games? Probably have to be baseball, right? Right? Okay. And $5,000. I was like, wow. Okay. The fan had to buy a ticket and pay $40 for parking. Let P represent the amount the fan paid for each ticket. Which equation represents the total amount the fan paid? Okay, so which one of those? Let's maybe narrow some or take some out. That might make our life a little easier. Okay, so let's look at A. Could A possibly be correct? Yes or no? No. Why no? Well, we don't know if we need parentheses yet or not. We're probably thinking that because that's the lesson we're in. But tell me why A would not work. Catherine. Very good. It's not multiplying the 41 because the 41 represents how many games they went to, right? So there's no way that this can be right because they didn't. This would be 40 games, right? So there cannot be A. Is there another one we can cancel out? What do you think about this one? This would be the reverse of what we just said. Can you tell me why that one's not right? Kendall?
It's all the same reason and also it's backwards.
There's another reason why this one doesn't work. Cassie?
41 and 40 are not multiplied.
What about the 40? Tell me something about the 40 that makes this one not work. See? 40 is for parking. Agreed, Lily?
The times if I how many times we win.
Yeah, aren't you going to have...
But it's not 40 for like all of it. It's 40 for each game.
40 for each game. Very good. If you've ever gone to a game, you have to pay every time you show up in parking. Okay, which stinks. So yes, that makes C not right because you're not just going to pay one time for the 40. Okay, so now let's get it down to these two. Okay, so let's think about this. Which one of these do you think might be correct and why? Cassie?
Deviant 41 on the outside, so it can be 40 times 40. I mean 41 times 40, and then B goes behind 40.
Good. Behind, you said this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because this would mean 41 times P. So 41 games, right? Because that would be 41P. What would this represent when I get this? 41 times 40.
The games times parking.
The games times how many times you have to pay $40 for parking. Does that make sense? So the correct answer then would be D. That's how that works. I'm not going to make us do how much they pay. We're not going to do that one. All right, let's look at one we have to write ourselves, and then we'll get it to some practice. All right, let's see if we can write our own equation. This one says a family of 6 buys airline tickets online. Travel insurance costs $19 per ticket. Do you guys understand what travel insurance is? Somebody explain what that is. Somebody doesn't know. Cassie?
So if your stuff gets lost or something breaks, then they'll, you can have insurance over it.
This one's a little different. It's kind of the same thing. Anybody know what travel insurance is? If they crash. If you crash and die, they're going to give your family back $19.
20.
So travel insurance means, like, let's say that you get ready to go on a trip to somewhere and you get extremely ill, like you're in the hospital. Well, obviously your family's not going to go; they're going to stay. So that guarantees that you don't lose your airline tickets. Because basically, if you choose to go on a trip and something happens, and you don't get on the airplane, you just lose your money. Did you guys know that? Yeah, most of the time you just are going to lose it. So by doing a travel insurance, it's going to say that. Or like, let's say your parents book like a stay in Mexico and it's at one of those resorts, and all your food and all that's paid for. If you just don't show up, you just are off that money. But if you purchase travel insurance, then you can rebook that vacation later. Does that make sense? So a lot of people do that. Okay, but you have to pay that. What's the key word there? Pay that per ticket, right? That's the key there. Okay, the family's charged a total of $1,116. How much does the airline ticket cost if each airline ticket is the same price? Which is normal. Airline tickets are normally the same. What did I tell you to always start with if you have no idea where to start? The total. And the total is $1,116. Okay, what do we not know here? What is the unknown? What's our variable? Take it. No, we know how many tickets. Kendall?
How much each ticket costs?
How much each ticket costs. Okay? So let's think about what would you do in real life to figure this out? Just tell me, like your parents are going on a trip, I bought these tickets. Tell me the math that you would use to figure out your total price. Kendall?
You would divide it into numbers.
No. Forget about the total for a minute. Your family's going on a trip. How would you figure out the real price? You have a calculator. I said, hey, figure this out. You don't know the total. You're online. You're figuring out how much it's going to cost you. What would you do? Okay, give me a fake price of a ticket. $200. Okay, $200. Tell me what you would do. You would take 200 plus 19, right? Then what would you do? Times 6. Which number would get multiplied by 6? Both, right? Both. So then we put it in parentheses and would say times 6, right? Because we want 6 times this and 6 times 19. So can we take that and write it into an equation? Yes, because what do we not know?